In 2016, Zachary Whitley fell victim to a fatal shooting during a robbery. His tragic demise left the community of Greenville County, South Carolina, in shock and sorrow. Then, 6 years later, the same residence became the site of another horrifying and violent crime when Charity Southerland met a similar end. These seemingly unrelated incidents remained dormant as cold cases on the surface, but persistent detective work would eventually lead to breakthroughs that would bring the culprits to justice years later. Greenville County, located in the northwestern part of South Carolina, is known for its small-town charm and a bustling downtown area. Despite its growth and development, certain neighborhoods in Greenville County still struggle with issues like poverty, crime, and reports of domestic violence. Zachary Whitley was a long-term resident of Greenville County. He was known for his friendly nature and his dedication to his family. Despite his warm personality, Zachary's life took a difficult turn that would lead him to become involved with people in the local criminal scene. He worked as a pool installer and landscaper, striving to provide for his family, which included a son and a daughter. Charity Southerland was a beloved member of the Greenville community, remembered for her kind and generous spirit. Undeterred by becoming a mother at a young age, Charity was determined to create a better life for her child. She was dedicated to her family and was known for her infectious smile and caring nature. Both Zachary Whitley and Charity Southerland had no idea that their lives would be brutally cut short under eerily similar circumstances in the same house. On a quiet Sunday afternoon in Pelzer, Greenville County, the peace of the day was shattered by a violent confrontation. On April 16, 2016, around 4 p.m., a dispute erupted into gunfire on 220 Eastview Road. Inside the home, Zachary Whitley, who was 31 at the time, found himself caught in a fatal crossfire. As chaos ensued, Zachary was struck by a single bullet to the chest. Despite the severe injury, pure adrenaline drove him to attempt to escape. He staggered out of the house, clutching his chest, but collapsed in the front yard before reaching his vehicle. He succumbed to his injuries before help could arrive. The scene inside the house was equally harrowing. 3 other individuals, Zachary's friends, were shot multiple times and left seriously injured. One victim was airlifted to Greenville Memorial Hospital, while the other 2 were transported by ambulance, all fighting for their lives. Witnesses described the suspects to the authorities, leading to the release of detailed descriptions. A group consisting of 3 males and a female getaway driver in a silver Toyota. The first suspect was described as a skinny black male in his early 20s. He wore jeans and a black cut-off t-shirt, standing at 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing 120 to 130 pounds. The second male suspect had long blonde dreadlocks, wore a bright Bob Marley jacket, and stood at 5 feet 10 inches tall, weighing 160 to 170 pounds. The third male suspect was noted for his white attire and possibly dreadlocks, standing at 6 feet 1 inch tall. The female getaway driver was described as heavy-set with short hair. Even with these detailed descriptions, no immediate arrests were made. This left both law enforcement and the community eager for resolution and justice. While Zachary's loved ones were left to mourn his loss, investigators worked to piece together the events of that tragic day. As weeks turned into years, the intensity surrounding Zachary Whitley's case began to wane, and the once promising leads grew cold. Although law enforcement made exhaustive efforts, the elusive perpetrators seemed to vanish into thin air. Then, in 2022, amid the lingering sense of frustration left behind from Zachary's case, a chilling sense of déjà vu gripped Greenville County. A new tragedy cast a dark shadow over the community once more. On April 2, 2022, there was another tragic shooting at 220 Eastview Road, the same address where Zachary Whitley had been slain years earlier. In the early morning hours, 21-year-old Charity Southerland was fatally shot in her home. Charity's 3-year-old son was present at the crime scene, and she was found lifeless in her bedroom. The investigation into the violent crime was immediate. Law enforcement, driven by a commitment to bring justice to the grieving family, worked tirelessly to gather evidence and follow leads. This happened only months after her brother passed away in a fatal car crash. Progress in the case seemed to come to a standstill in the months following Charity's horrifying end. On April 2, 2023, her family and friends held a vigil at Herdklotz Park to bring attention to the case again. Her father, Linny, recalled her positive impact on those around her, saying, She was just such a good person. Everybody she encountered loved her character. She was just a lovable kind of a person, a likable kind of person. You wanted to be around her. On February 16, 2024, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office announced significant breakthroughs in the two cold cases during a press conference. Sheriff Hobart Lewis revealed that the investigations unit had solved both slayings of Charity Southerland in 2022 and Zachary Whitley in 2016. Despite being unrelated, both crimes occurred at the same property, 220 Eastview Road in Pelzer. The 2022 case saw new developments when the GCSO Cold Case Unit identified 22-year-old Charles Russell Reams as the suspect in Charity Southerland's crime. Although Reams, the father of her child, had been a person of interest from the beginning, initial evidence was insufficient for charges. Charity's demise was following what was believed to be an ongoing domestic-related issue inside her home. In January 2023, Reams was arrested in Rome, Georgia, on unrelated assault charges. He kidnapped a woman and hit her in the face with a gun, causing bruising, swelling, and a busted lip. He is also accused of attempting to strangle the victim. The investigators could then link DNA evidence and witness testimony to Reams. This led to warrants for his immediate arrest in January 2024 on charges in connection to Charity's fatal slaying and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. Reams remains in custody at the Floyd County Detention Center in Georgia without bond, pending extradition. In the 2016 case, the slaying of Zachary Whitley was attributed to 34-year-old John Wesley Nix. Authorities identified it as an illegal substance-related deal gone bad. Nix went to the home on Eastview Road to sell illegal substances and ultimately shot 4 people. Cold case investigators re-examined the case in 2022 after it had stalled. Utilizing improved DNA forensic technology and conducting follow-up interviews, investigators secured witness statements and DNA evidence that identified Nix as a shooter. The GCSO Fugitive Apprehension Specialized Investigations Team arrested Nix at his job on Wade Hampton Boulevard. Nix was charged with a violent crime as well as assault and battery, attempted robbery, possession of a weapon during a violent crime, and criminal conspiracy. He is currently in the Greenville County Detention Center without bond. The GCSO is still working to identify 2 other suspects involved in the incident. The recent breakthroughs in the cases of Charity Southerland and Zachary Whitley bring much-needed closure to their families after years of uncertainty and grief. Jessica Kemp, Charity's sister, said, "I am grateful for whoever the victim was in Georgia that had the courage to say something. I wish my sister had that same courage because she would probably still be here today." Her mom, Fema Hester, said she is thankful for the woman who came forward and helped put Reams behind bars. "I think if it was not for her doing what she did, it might have taken longer for investigators to find the evidence that they needed to get him. She is my angel." The family is working to obtain full custody of Charity's son, Raheem, following his father's arrest. The arrests of Charles Russell Reams and John Wesley Nix highlight the dedication of the Greenville County Sheriff's Office to finding justice for the victims. As the legal process continues, the community stands together in support of the victims' families, honoring Charity and Zachary's memories. In 1991, the seaside city of Ventura, California, was rocked by the brutal slaying of Danielle Clause, a beloved artist. It was a tragedy that would haunt the community for over 3 decades. Despite years of silence, advancements in forensic genealogy finally shed light on the decades-old mystery, bringing some closure to her family and the community. Born on July 24, 1948, Danielle Clause was a talented and sensitive artist, known for her evocative poetry and creative spirit. Despite battling significant personal challenges, including addiction, she made remarkable strides towards recovery. Danielle managed to turn her life around and then went on to dedicate herself to helping others facing similar issues. She worked at an adult school in Ventura, where she provided support and guidance to others dealing with addiction. Danielle was also an accomplished poet. She collaborated with her sister on a poem titled "Sheltered Heart." It poignantly depicted a bruised and bleeding heart attacked by cruel viciousness. This imagery would tragically echo the circumstances of her own demise. On the evening of July 15, 1991, Ventura, California experienced a night that would haunt the community for decades. Danielle, who was 42 years old at the time, was seen around 8 p.m. conversing with a man. This was at the corner of Hemlock Street and Thompson Boulevard. This would be the last time anyone would see Danielle alive. Danielle's husband reported her missing the next day when she failed to return home. On the morning of July 16, 1991, her partially clothed and beaten body was discovered on a hillside on Tioga Drive in a flood control catch basin, about a mile from where she was last seen. The discovery of her body sent shockwaves through the community and initiated a thorough investigation by the Ventura Police Department. The crime scene was grim. Danielle had suffered severe blunt force injuries to her head. An autopsy would later confirm that there was evidence indicating she had also been assaulted. Near her body, investigators found a blood-stained rock, believed to be the weapon used to take Danielle's life. Detectives meticulously collected evidence from the scene, including fingerprints, cigarette butts, trash, papers, and anything that seemed out of place or disturbed. But even with their thoroughness, the immediate investigation faced challenges. Witnesses described seeing a white pickup truck near the scene, but identifying the vehicle's owner proved difficult. Detectives canvassed the area and interviewed numerous individuals, but were unable to locate the suspect or gather enough leads to make an arrest. Their efforts were not enough to keep the investigation from hitting an end, and eventually the trail went cold. The physical evidence collected, including DNA from the assault kit, was not enough to identify a suspect with the technology available at the time. For more than 2 decades, Danielle's tragic demise remained unsolved. Her case file grew to over 1,000 pages as investigators documented every avenue explored and every lead followed. This would change in 2018 with the capture of the Golden State perpetrator, achieved through forensic genetic genealogy. This case would go on to revolutionize cold case investigations nationwide. Officer Tyler Buck, a new detective with the Ventura Police Department's Major Crimes Unit, dedicated several hours each week to cold cases. He had a particular interest in the potential of DNA technology to help solve them. He meticulously studied the 1,000-page case files, hoping to uncover overlooked details. Buck noted that the case's DNA sample had been entered into CODIS, but unfortunately, no matches were found. Buck then reached out to the crime scene investigations team and reviewed the evidence. He discovered that the weapon, a rock, and Danielle's fingernail clippings had never been tested for DNA. In May 2021, investigators decided to test these items to compare the DNA on the rock and fingernail clippings to the DNA from the assault kit. By September 2021, the results confirmed that all the DNA matched a single unknown suspect. Understanding the need for modern methods, the team pursued forensic genetic genealogy, a costly but effective technique. They reached out to multiple agencies for assistance. Senior forensic genealogist Misty Gillis from Identifinders International helped analyze the DNA sample. After building the genetic profile, it was uploaded to many genealogy databases. By July 2022, genealogists had constructed part of the suspect's family tree. In May 2023, they located a living family member interested in genealogy who had already built a family tree and provided a DNA sample. Analysis revealed she was a first cousin match and that she only had 2 male first cousins. This narrowed the suspects to 2 brothers, late Larry Devon Welsh and his brother who lived in Virginia. With only 1 brother alive, investigators faced challenges in obtaining a surreptitious DNA sample. By October 2023, a cold case assault unit further developed profiles on the Welsh brothers. Analysis revealed that Welsh had brown hair and hazel eyes. This matched the suspect's characteristics. His living brother had blonde hair and blue eyes. To confirm, Virginia State Police assisted by obtaining a DNA sample from the living brother. He provided information about Welsh's life. Testing confirmed he was not the suspect, but the full sibling of the suspect. Thus it was confirmed that the DNA from the crime scene belonged to Larry Welsh. Additional factors tied Welsh to the crime. He owned a white Ford Ranger and had a P.O. box in Ventura at the time of the slaying. He was seen with Danielle around the time she disappeared, and another witness had spotted him near the area where her body was found. Welsh, who was 41 years old at the time of the slaying, had passed away in 1999 due to an overdose. Identifying him brought a measure of closure to Danielle Clause's family. Her sister, Marcy Fort, expressed her gratitude for the dedication of the Ventura police and everyone involved in solving the case. She reflected on her sister's life and the long journey to justice. "My sister was so much more than a victim of a brutal crime. She was an artist, a daughter, a sister, a mother, and a wife. She was a good person with a mighty soul, and she was taken away too young." She remembered going to see her sister's body. She was so badly beaten that she was unrecognizable. I did not want my mother to see her like that. It was just devastating. Holidays. I always prayed that I would be able to know who did this. 33 years later, my prayers were answered. They did a phenomenal job, and I am so grateful that I lived to see at least a measure of justice. The resolution of Danielle's case is a testament to the persistence and innovation of the Ventura Police Department. Ventura Police Chief Darren Schindler said, "From the initial investigation in 1991 to recent advancements in forensic techniques, I am honored to highlight the perseverance of detectives as they continue to seek justice for the victim and her family. The successful end to Danielle Clause's case provides hope and a model for solving other cold cases." On a warm June night in 1984, Judith "Judy" Weaver walked home from her shift at the Bell Nest Cafe in Everett, Washington, never to be seen alive again. The next morning, her brutally slain body was discovered in her apartment, sparking a mystery that would haunt her loved ones for nearly 4 decades. Until a breakthrough in DNA technology led the police to a man with a dark past, reopening a case long thought unsolvable. Judy Weaver's life began in the close-knit community of Everett, Washington, where she was born and raised. Known for her warm smile and friendly demeanor, Judy was a beloved figure in her hometown. At the age of 17, Judy was crowned the queen of a local beauty pageant, evidence of her charm and grace. In 1984, she co-owned the Bell Nest Cafe on Hewitt Avenue with her mother, Edith Perrault. She worked tirelessly to support her family. The cafe was a local staple, and Judy's presence there added a personal touch that customers appreciated. She worked alongside her mother and her daughter, Kathy Myers, making the Bell Nest a true family business. Street smart and cautious, Judy was known to keep a gun in the basement of the cafe for protection when she counts the till. She was fiercely protective of her loved ones and ensured their safety was always a priority. As a single mother, Judy's family life was centered around her 2 daughters, Kathy Myers and Colleen Kaiser, who adored their mother and looked up to her as a role model. Judy looked forward to the future, anticipating the joy of watching her daughters grow and hoping to one day meet her future grandchildren. She met Levi, the oldest grandchild, when he was 4 months old. At his birth, "It's a boy," signs went up at the Bell Nest. Tragically, the trajectory of Judy's life and those that knew her would take a dark turn. On June 1st, 1984, Judy spent her day working at the Bell Nest Cafe in downtown Everett, Washington. The city was buzzing with activity as the Salty Sea Days celebration, a popular local event, was winding down. As evening approached, Judy finished her shift and left the cafe, starting her usual walk home. The streets of Everett were likely filled with locals enjoying the final moments of the festivities. Judy made her usual stop at the Dairy Queen, just a half block from her apartment on Rucker Avenue. She probably ordered a dish of vanilla ice cream, a simple pleasure she often indulged in. A witness later reported seeing her there with a young man, someone they believed Judy might have known. This stop, which seemed mundane at the time, would mark the last time anyone saw Judy Weaver alive. Just after midnight on June 2nd, a passerby noticed smoke coming out of Judy's apartment. She stayed in an apartment in a 1-story, 5-unit brick building at the corner of 35th Street and Rucker Avenue. The passerby used a payphone to call 911, alerting the Everett Fire Department to the fire. When firefighters arrived, they were met with thick black smoke and a sense of urgency. As they entered Judy's apartment, they made a horrifying discovery. Judy was found in her bedroom, tied up with a phone cord, and the victim of a brutal assault. She had been strangled, and her clothes had been cut off with a knife. The fire, which was started with a paper towel in a Pond's cold cream jar, had been contained to the bedroom. But it was clear that its purpose was to cover up the assault and slaying. The back door of her apartment was unlocked, suggesting that the assailant had gained entry through it. Firefighters had to crawl into the smoke-filled bedroom to reach Judy, finding her lifeless body. The brutality of the crime shocked the community and devastated Judy's family. Her daughters, Kathy and Colleen, were thrust into a nightmare, grappling with the sudden and violent loss of their mother. News of the slaying spread quickly, casting a dark cloud over the city and signaling the start of a lengthy and challenging investigation. In the immediate aftermath of Judy's brutal slaying, the Everett police launched an intensive investigation to find her assailant. Detectives Gary Woodburn and Pete Grassi were among the first on the scene, working tirelessly to piece together what had happened. The crime was particularly heinous, and the fire, deliberately set to cover up the crime, had only partially succeeded. It left just enough evidence for detectives to understand the severity and brutality of the assault. Initially, investigators hoped that the forensic evidence gathered from the scene would lead them to the perpetrator. They collected samples from the apartment, including a piece of carpeting and a cigarette butt. The samples were sent to State Patrol crime analysts in hopes of finding a match in DNA databases, but the case began to stall almost immediately. The DNA samples did not match anyone in the existing databases, and the leads they had quickly dried up. Detectives re-interviewed witnesses and canvassed the area repeatedly, but no one could provide any substantial new information. The young man reportedly seen with Judy at the Dairy Queen was never identified, and no clear connection to anyone she knew surfaced. Although Judy was a well-known presence in the community, no one came forward with useful information that could lead to a suspect. Years passed, and the case went cold. In 2002, Pete Grassi, who had originally investigated the fire, revisited the evidence with the hope that advancements in forensic technology might provide new leads. The DNA from the carpeting and the cigarette butt were re-examined, producing a readable strand of DNA. The DNA did not match the prime suspect at the time, who was subsequently cleared. Once again, the DNA did not return a match in any law enforcement database, leaving investigators without a viable suspect. The frustration of the case going cold weighed heavily on the Everett police, particularly those who had been involved since the beginning. Grassi said in 2009, "There is nothing to do at this point." Detectives believed the case might never be solved unless a new tip came in or DNA technology advanced to the point where it could identify the perpetrator. As Judy's family lived with the pain of her unsolved slaying, her daughters remained hopeful and continued to push for answers. For nearly 4 decades, it remained a cold case hanging over the Everett community. But in 2024, a significant breakthrough was able to crack the case wide open. The breakthrough came thanks to advances in forensic technology and the determination of Everett detective Susan Logothetti. Earlier in the year, Logothetti and her team revisited the case files, focusing on DNA evidence that had been collected from the crime scene. Among the key pieces of evidence were DNA profiles found on pantyhose and a ligature used to bind Judy. These DNA samples had been run through CODIS, the national DNA database multiple times over the years without a match. But technology had advanced significantly since the original samples were collected, and detectives were hopeful that a new analysis might yield results. They then had a suspect, but needed a new DNA sample from him. Logothetti and other undercover officers posed as representatives from a gum company to determine the favorite flavors of participants in a study. The detectives collected multiple pieces of gum they saw the suspect chew in front of them in a ramekin, which was sent to compare with the DNA recovered from the victim. The DNA profiles matched a man named Mitchell Gaff, a 66-year-old with a lengthy history of predatory violence against women. Gaff had been living in Olympia, Washington, under the legally changed name of Sam Wise Price. He is a Level 3 offender, indicating a high risk to reoffend. His criminal history was both extensive and violent, with his past convictions showing a trend of him tying women up and then assaulting them. After confirming the match, Everett police acted quickly. They located Gaff in Olympia and arrested him on May 1, 2024. He was booked into the Snohomish County Jail on multiple charges: first-degree assault, first-degree arson, first-degree kidnapping, first-degree burglary, and ultimately charged with taking the life of Judith Weaver. Gaff, who had a history of evading justice through legal name changes and moving to different areas, invoked his right to remain silent when detectives tried to interview him. Even with his refusal to speak, the DNA evidence provided a strong link, solidifying the case against him. The breakthrough in Judy's case highlighted the importance of advances in forensic science and the commitment of law enforcement to solve even the coldest cases. After nearly 40 years, the arrest of Mitchell Gaff brought a measure of resolution to a community and a family that had been waiting far too long for answers. For Judy's family, the arrest brought a mix of emotions. While it could never bring Judy back, the possibility of justice provided a sense of closure they had long sought after. Judy's daughter, Kathy Myers, had said years earlier, "It's not going to bring Mom back, but it is going to be closure." On Monday, May 6, 2024, Gaff appeared in Snohomish County courtroom. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. He is being held on no bail. His trial is scheduled to begin on June 21st. If convicted as charged, Gaff will receive a life sentence.